mics on. I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat, so I'm glad I made it through that song. We're staying with my parents. We moved this Friday out of our house in Greenwood, and that was a lot of fun. And we had one dining room table get broken in the process, or the dining room table, so not too thrilled about that, but anyways, so living with my parents right now. And so I was like, man, I got a little bit of a frog in my throat. So Mama comes out with the elderberry and zinc gummies and quinine and vitamin C drink that sort of tastes like Tang but doesn't quite taste like Tang, but you drink it anyways. And anyways, it's good to have a mama who takes care of me. Amen. Yeah. And I'm blessed to have my parents, and very blessed, and they've been a real blessing to me, and driving down from Anderson to join us for worship. So it is a tremendous blessing to have your parents. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt vindicated? You know what I mean by that? It's like when you kept saying, no, it's this way, no, it's this way, and everybody's like, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and all of a sudden, it turns out you were right. You ever had that happen? Feels good, doesn't it? It's like, ooh, you were wrong, right? We like to feel vindicated. You know, we're going through the book of Job, and I don't think we have our clicker this morning. We are really having a hard time. We've had audio issues all morning going on. We're not sure what is going on with our audio, and now our clicker's gone. Y'all, I want you to know this is what we have deacons for. Deacons run clickers, and they. Thank you, Brother Rob. Thank you. And I will give a shout out to Rob and Annika here. They were here last night. The Sunday school class did the pastor appreciation breakfast for me this morning, and then they got the sign ready here for the unveiling here in a few minutes. But we've been going through the book of Job, and I told you that the reason for the book of Job is really, it's a picture of how a righteous person suffers. It's really a picture of how does a person, Job, a man, how does the righteous person, God called him a righteous person, a man full of integrity, how does that person go through suffering? And we said this, that when a righteous person goes through suffering, and if you're going through suffering in your life, here's the challenge for you and me. If you're not going through suffering right now, you will. All right, at some point you're going to face suffering. So the challenge is to suffer in total surrender. And that basically means that you have to accept that both blessing and adversity come from the Lord, okay? And so we've been talking about how a righteous person should suffer, and we should suffer in total surrender. We should accept both adversity and blessing as coming from God. And then the other thing we said as we looked at this book is that a righteous person not only accepts blessing and adversity as coming from God, but a righteous person also knows his or her place, all right? A righteous person knows that God is God and they are not. We need to know that. God is infinite. We are finite. We are just humans. So a righteous person understands that. And also we said that a righteous person holds on to his or her faith, because ultimately we walk by faith. And by the way, some people say, well, you religious people, you're the only ones that have faith, right? Everybody lives with faith. Every one of you exhibited faith this morning when you sat down in that chair, right? You had faith, that chair would hold you up. Didn't think about it, but you did, right? Every time you get inside that pressurized tube and fly through the sky at 30,000 feet, you have faith that pilot's going to be able to land that thing, or it's going to keep flying, right? The more and more I see on TV, the less I want to get in those pressurized tubes. But a righteous person holds on to his or her faith. And that's what we've been looking at here in the book of Job, because we watched Job go through this. And so far, man, Job's been doing great. He's been batting 1,000. However, as we wrap up this book, I want you to know that Job made one big mistake. Remember, he's just a man. He wasn't perfect. All right? He followed God. He loved God. He worshiped God. He wasn't perfect like us. And he made one huge mistake. And in fact, it's a mistake that all of us can make. You may love the Lord. You walk with the Lord. You're walking in obedience to God. and you're like, this is wonderful, but this is one mistake that you and I can make. And even as we look at Job, we see that he made this mistake. Even though he loved God with his heart, soul, mind, Job made one mistake. And if Job could make this mistake, all of us could make this mistake. Now you say, okay, what was his mistake? What did Job do wrong in the midst of this? Well, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But I want you to turn your Bibles to Job chapter 38, because Job finally gets what he's been wanting through this whole book. He finally gets an audience with God. He finally gets to have a meeting with God. And he's going to finally get what he wants. But the meeting he gets doesn't go exactly as he planned it. So what we're going to do, this is going to be a little bit different sermon this morning. I'm going to need some audio feedback this morning, okay? But we are going to sit in on this meeting with Job as he meets with God. So let's look at Job chapter 38 here. And so God finally gives Job this audience. So Job 38 verse 1, there we go. The Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. Now that's pretty wild, right? All of a sudden we just have this whirlwind show up. And he said, "Who is this who obscures my counsel with ignorant words?" So right off the bat, God's like, Job, you're obscuring my counsel with ignorant words. Who are you to do this? All right, I mean, this is pretty rough. And so at the beginning of this whole thing, we were told that Job was a man of integrity, a righteous man, and yet God's saying, you didn't handle this right. And so God's like, okay, Job, I'm going to put the screws to you. Here we go. Now, he says, get ready to answer me like a man. When I question you, you will inform me. Okay? So here we go. Here goes the question time. All right? God's going to ask some questions. First of all, where were you when I established the earth? Where were we all when God created the world? We weren't, right? Tell me if you have understanding. Who fixed its dimensions? I didn't. Certainly you know. No, I don't. Who stretched a measuring line across it? Now, I don't know of any measuring tape that's that big. What supports its foundations? I mean, have you ever thought about that? Have you ever Googled that? How does the earth float? It actually isn't floating. It's actually falling towards the sun, but it keeps missing the sun. It's called an orbit, but it looks like we're floating. It's crazy. How does that work? That's wild. Or who laid its cornerstone? We didn't do that. Who laid its cornerstone while the morning stars sang together? I'll get my slides caught up here. Okay. While the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Obviously, we weren't there, right? Job wasn't there. We weren't there. We didn't have anything to do with the creation of the earth. We didn't have anything to do with laying down the foundations of the earth. We didn't have to do anything like that. And I want to give you a few things here to avoid making Job's mistake. You say, well, what was Job's mistake? Here was Job's mistake. Throughout this whole time when he was talking to his friends and Elihu who jumped in there, a bystander, the whole time Job constantly was vindicating himself. I'm blameless. I didn't commit sin. That's not why this is happening. You guys say it's because I sinned, but it wasn't because I sinned. I know I didn't. I've been following God. The whole time Job vindicated himself, but he never vindicated God. He never said, God is blameless in doing this to me. So let me tell you how we avoid making that mistake. When we're going through suffering, acknowledge that God is the creator of the universe. You don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I didn't create the universe. God did. And so when we're going through suffering, we don't make the mistake of vindicating ourselves, saying, I don't know why this is happening, God. I've been following you. Fine. But it's the same thing. We need to vindicate God. But God is the creator of the universe. You know what? It's his story. It's his universe. He is right in allowing this suffering to happen to me. And that's hard. But see, that Job had a heart, he just never really vindicated God and said, God is blameless in all this. It was always, why God? Why are you letting this happen to me? Just let me die now. Please, I don't get this. I don't understand this. He would tell us all the things that God could do and all the power that God had. He would tell us that over and over as he was talking to his friends, but he never vindicated God and said, God is blameless in allowing this to happen to me. He never did that. He was always worrying about vindicating himself. So one thing that we have to do to make sure that we don't make that mistake when we're going through suffering is that we vindicate God. God is blameless in allowing this to happen to me. And one of the reasons is because he's the creator here. He is the creator of the universe. Okay, let's keep going here. Look at verse 8 here, right, real quickly. Here's what he says. Who enclosed the sea behind its doors? God says this to Job. He says, who enclosed the sea behind its doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and total darkness its blanket. When I determined its boundaries and put its bars and doors into place. When I declared, you may come this far but no further. Your proud waves stop here. Have you ever been to the ocean? I love the ocean. You ever been to the ocean? The waves stop, right? They just stop. And when I look at these phrases over and over, God says, I made, I declared, I determined, I did this. You didn't have anything to do with this, Job. I am the creator. No human is capable of doing what God has done. Look now, here's some questions God's going to ask, and let's look at these. He says, have you ever in your life commanded the morning or assigned the dawn in its place so that it may seize the edges of the earth and shake the wicked out of it? No, I've never commanded the morning. Has anybody got out there and say, sun? Nope, haven't been able to do that. Obviously, God's a God of justice. Verse 14, the earth is changed as clay by a its hills stand out like folds of a garment. Light is withheld from the wicked, and an arm raised in violence is broken. He's obviously a God of justice. Now, God's going to fire a bunch of questions at Job. Okay, I want you're sitting in the audience right now with Job. God's speaking. Now, the answer to these questions are going to be yes or no. All right. So here we go. Y'all answer it with me. Have you traveled the sources of the sea or walked in the depths of the ocean? No. Okay, I haven't done that either. The ocean is on average 2.3 miles deep, and the deepest we've gone so far is 7 miles. God, and they say at 7 miles, the pressure is over 1,000 times what it is here on the earth. So God has walked at the depths of the ocean where we would be instantly crushed. No, none of us have ever walked the depths of the ocean. Okay, let's look here at the next one. Have the gates of death been revealed to you? No. Have you seen the gates of deep darkness? No. Have you comprehended the extent of the earth? Anybody? No, I can't comprehend even the extent. I can't certainly comprehend the extent of the galaxy, even the earth today. I mean, you think about it, you think, well, science, we got all the science and stuff. That's awesome. That's great. But you know what? They still say that like 95% of the ocean has never been mapped. We still have huge swaths of our planet that have never been mapped. We still can't comprehend all this. So God says, okay, tell me if you know this. The answer is, I don't know this. All right? Look at verse 19. Where is the road to the home of light? I have no idea. Do you know where darkness lives so that you can lead it back to its borders? No. Are you familiar with the paths to its home? No. Don't you know? You were already born. You have lived so long. Do you think God's being a little sarcastic? Job. I don't know how old Job was. Back in those days, they did a little longer. Job, you're 90 years old. Don't you know all these things? No. Look at this. Yes, no. Have you entered the place where the soul is stored? No. I haven't done that. Or have you seen the storehouses of hail? No. Which I reserve for times of trouble, for the days of warfare and battle. What road leads to the place where light is dispersed? I have no idea. Where is the source of the east wind that spreads across the earth? I don't know. Look at verse 25. Who cuts a channel for the flooding rain or clears the way for lightning, to bring rain on an inhabited land, on a desert with no human life, to satisfy the parched wasteland and cause the grouse to sprout? I don't know. I guess you, God, you must be the one who does this. Does rain have a father? I guess it's you, God. Who fathered the drops of dew? I'm getting behind on my slides. I'm sorry. I don't know. I guess it's God. Whose womb did the ice come from? Who gave birth to the frost of heaven? I guess it's you, God. When water became hard as stone and the surface of the watery deeps is frozen. I guess it's you. I mean, what do you want me to say? I don't know. I don't get it. Here's some yes and no's. Give me your thoughts. Can you fasten the chains of the Pleiades or loosen the belt of Orion? Does anybody know what that is? It's the constellations. You know, you look up at the stars and you see the three little stars. That's the belt of Orion, if you ever looked up there at the stars. Verse 32, can you bring out the constellations in their season and lead the bear with her cubs? No, in fact, if there's a bear, I'm probably running. Look at this one. Do you know the laws of heaven? No. I mean, we're still discovering things about how all this works. We're still discovering the physics of this. Can you impose its authority on earth? No. Can you command the clouds so that a flood of water covers? No. We'd like to, right? Sometimes. Can you send out lightning bolts and they go? No. Now, I know y'all would occasionally like to do that. Strike them down. No. Fortunately, we can't do that. Only God can do it. Do they report to you, here we are? No. Who put wisdom in the heart or gave the mind understanding? I guess you did. I didn't. Who has the wisdom to number the clouds or to tilt the water jars of heaven? I guess you do. I don't have that ability. When the dust hardens like cast metal and the clouds, clods of dirt stick together. I guess it's all you, God. I don't know. I can't do any of this. Here's another one. Can you hunt prey for a lioness or satisfy the appetite of young lions when they crouch in their dens and wait within their lairs? No, I can't do that. Who provides the raven food when its young cries out to God and wanders about for lack of food? Well, obviously that's... Look at verse chapter 39. Here's what I want you to see so far. So we know one way that we keep from making the big mistake that Job made, which was he failed to vindicate God, was first of all, in our suffering, we need to acknowledge God is the creator. And also God is the sustainer. He's the one that sustains all this. Sends the clouds and the snow and the rain and the lightning. He's the one that controls everything that works on this world and in the universe. We do not. And so when we're going through suffering, it's easy to say, woe is me, God doesn't love me. Yes, He does. He still loves you. He's allowing it. We've talked about reasons why God may allow suffering, but the one way that we can keep from not vindicating God is saying, God, you know what? You're the creator. You're the sustainer. And you're blameless in this. I don't understand why you're letting it happen, but I'm going to trust you. Look at chapter 39. All right, y'all, answer me this. Do y'all know when the mountain goats give birth? No? Okay, no. Have you watched the deer in labor? No. Can you count the mouths, months they are pregnant? I have no idea when they got pregnant. So you know the time when they give birth? No. They crouch down to give birth to their young. They deliver their newborn. Their offspring are healthy and grow up in an open field. They leave and do not return. God watches all this going on constantly throughout creation. Here's one. Who set the donkey free? Wasn't me. Who released the swift donkey from its harness? Wasn't me. And here's what God says about the donkey. I made the desert its home and the salty wasteland its dwelling. It scoffs at the noise of the village. It never hears the shouts of a driver. It roams the mountains for its parched land, scorching for anything green. Would the wild ox be willing to serve you? No, I'm not even going to mess with it. Would it spend the night by your feeding trough? Nope, not going to happen. Can you hold the wild ox to a furrow by its harness? Now, I don't know. Has anybody here done anything with ox? Okay. All right. I do know when I lived in Alabama, of course, we had a lot of folks that were into farming, and I remember a couple occasions going down there, some bulls. Ooh, you must stay out of the way of those things. They'll kill you. Can you hold the wild ox to a furrow by its harness? Will it plow the valleys behind you? Absolutely not. It's wild. Can you depend on it because its strength is great? Would you leave it to do your hard work? No, I can't depend on it. It's wild. But obviously God can make it do whatever He wants it to do. Can you trust the wild ox to harvest your grain and bring it to the threshing floor? Absolutely not. It's going to do what it's going to do. Now, the next passage I have to say, and this is a little different this morning because we're just kind of reading this through as God's putting Job on trial, because I also want us to think of us being on trial so that we make sure that we obey God. And the next section here, I have to honestly tell you this. I really believe God has a sense of humor. I really do. I think God laughs. And I think the reason, one of the arguments I would give you that he laughs is because of the bird he just getting ready to talk about. You want to talk about a weird bird. I think God created this just for fun. The wings of an ostrich flap joyfully, but her feathers and plumage are like a stork's. She abandons her eggs on the ground and lets them be warmed by the sand. She forgets that a foot may crush them or some wild animal may trample them. She treats her young harshly as if they were not her own, with no fear of her labor may be in vain, for God has deprived her of wisdom. He has not endowed her with understanding. I mean, if you ever watch, they are dumb animals. There's some great videos on YouTube, by the way, of people trying to ride ostriches. You should watch them. When she proudly spreads her wings, she laughs at the horse and the rider. I mean, she acts like she's big, but she's just kind of a weird, dumb bird. All right, some more yes and no's. Here we go. Let's see it. Do you give strength to the horse? No. Okay. Do you adorn its neck with a mane? No. Do you make him leap like a locust? No. His proud snorting fills one with terror. He paws in the valley and rejoices in his strength. He charges into battle. He laughs at fear since he is afraid of nothing. He does not run from the sword. You know, that's horses in battle. A quiver rattles at his side along with a flashing spear and javelin. He charges ahead with trembling rage, but he cannot stand still at the trumpeter's sound. When the trumpet blasts, he snorts defiantly. He smells the battle from a distance. He hears the officer's shouts and the battle cry. I mean, horses, they just charge right into battle, right? A lot of animals would run from it. God created the horses to do this. Here's another one we can ask. He's going to ask us, does the hawk take flight by your understanding and spread its wings to the south? No, I don't know anything about how to make hawks fly. Does the eagle soar at your command or make its nest on high? No, can't command eagles. It lives on a cliff where it spends the night. Its stronghold is in a rocky crag. From there it searches for prey. Its eyes penetrate the distance. Its brood gulps down blood. Where the slain are, it is there. Wow. Remember here, know that God created the universe. God sustains the universe. God knows the universe. He knows what's going on. He knows about the mountain lion, the eagle, the ostrich, the bull, the horse. He sees these animals giving birth and all these things. We don't see this stuff going on. God sees it all. He knows. He knows right now that you're in this room. In fact, He's here with us. He knows what we do in secret. He knows what we do in public. He knows the universe. If you're suffering and struggling right now, He knows that. He knows that. He knows where you are. He knows what you're going through. He knows that. So be sure to vindicate Him. He is just in allowing these things to happen. Now, Job finally talks. The Lord answered Job, chapter 40. Will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Come on, Job, give me an answer. Let him who argues with God give an answer. Come on, Job. You've been talking about this. Here's your chance. Give it to me. Verse 3, then Job answered the Lord, I am insignificant. Oh, don't you feel that way after hearing all this? I'm insignificant. How can I answer you? I can't answer you. I placed my hand over my mouth. I have spoken once and will not reply twice. But now I can add nothing. And Job, if you and I were there and there's this whirlwind going on, this voice coming out that's firing us all these questions, you probably feel right now like kind of a dummy. I didn't do any of this stuff. I can't do any of this stuff. Job's like, whirlwind going on, and then God's like, okay, round 2. Here we go. Then the Lord, whirlwind, round 2. Get ready to answer like a man. When I question you, you will inform me. Would you really challenge my justice? Would you really declare me guilty to justify yourself? See? Oh, Job messed up there. Do you have an arm like God's? Can you thunder with a voice like His? Man, I tell you what, God is really hammering. He says, adorn yourself with majesty and splendor and clothe yourself with honor. Pour out your raging anger. Look on every proud person and humiliate him. Look on every proud person and humble him. Trample the wicked when they stand. Hide them together in the dust. Imprison them in the grave. Then I will confess to you that your right hand can deliver you. You do what I do, Job, and then I'll tell you you can do what I do. But you can't. See, I want to point something out right quickly just for a second. There's a lot of folks today that say, look, you know what? I don't know about this whole death thing. When I die, I'm just going to tell God like it is. When I get there, I'll figure it out. Let me tell you something. When you die and you're in the throne room of the King of the universe and He's seated on the throne, you ain't telling Him anything. I mean, Job's here on earth. He's still on his home turf and he is dumbfounded. He's not saying anything. He's scared to death. He's like, I can't answer you. And let me tell you, the person that says, well, you know, I don't know if I believe there is a God, but if there is a God, when I get up there, I'll tell him, you didn't give me enough information. You didn't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. Listen, you ain't going to say anything. He can answer you. He'll ask you 3 or 4 questions, and you're going to be like, I have no idea. Like, then you don't have any reason to talk. Until you create your own planet, until you're in control of the universe, I'm afraid that a lot of people who think they're going to be so bold when they finally tell God like it is are going to be totally dumbfounded. And God's going to tell them like it is. You see, there's a day when believers will also stand before Christ. We won't be judged by whether or not we go to heaven because that's already been settled. We will be judged by what we did with what we have. Okay, how we've used our time for Him, what we've done. And again, let me just say this real quick, believers. Sometimes we look at other believers like, man, I could never be like, she's such a, does all this blah, 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 and he's not. Look, all that we're going to be judged on is what you've done with what you have. Right? Have you loved God? Have you served God? Have you been obedient? It's not about whether you've won 50,000 people to the Lord or had, or been a missionary. That's not the point. The point is, have you done with what you had and loved Him? One day as believers, we will give an account for that. But an unbeliever will stand before God. And believe me, they're not going to have anything to say when they see the King of the universe. And He's going to say, here's your life. Here's what you've done. Here's your sins. Now you owe me. Can you pay it? No. Let me look in the book of life. Is your name there? No, it's not. I'm sorry. You're going to have to go pay for your sins. Now, right now, we celebrate communion today. It's all about the fact that God sent Jesus Christ to pay for our sins. And all who accept His gift have their sins paid for. Amen? We're justified. But those who refuse His gift, when they stand before God, it's too late. Christmas is over. And now you have to pay for it. And again, Job is left absolutely speechless and dumbfounded. Believe me, you stand before God, you'd be speechless and dumbfounded too. Let's just keep looking here just for a second. Now, this is a very interesting passage, and this could be a whole different sermon series. A lot of people argue that dinosaurs lived 65 million years before humans, and then a big asteroid hit the earth and killed all the dinosaurs. Miraculously, it didn't kill anything else but the dinosaurs. The reality is that's not true, because when we read Job, it's clear that there have been these type of animals, even with humanity. By the way, dinosaur is actually a relatively new term. It was coined around 1848. It just basically means a large reptile. Okay, and back in these days, if you read the book of Genesis, humans lived 800, 900 years. Well, you got a lizard that lives 800 years, it's going to be big because they never stop growing. And so God's going to talk about some animals, and again, this is around Abraham's time, and so clearly there were some big animals on the earth that even today we would say, wow, that looks like a dinosaur. That sounds like this huge behemoth. Look at this thing right here. You've probably heard about behemoths right here. Just take a look at this and we'll keep going here. He says, look at the behemoth. which I made along with you. Whoa, what? You made these along with humans? Yes. Oh, so dinosaurs didn't come and then die and then humans came? No. We were made together. That's what he says. He says, look at the strength of his back and the power of the muscles in his belly. He says he stiffens his tail like a cedar tree. His tendons and his thighs are woven firmly together. His bones are like bronze tubes. His limbs are like iron rods. He is the foremost of God's works. Only his maker can draw the sword against him. I mean, you didn't stop these animals. These were huge behemoths. The hills yield food for him with all sorts of wild animals play there. Again, a lot of these animals were vegetarians. He lives under the lotus plant, hiding in the protection of the marshy reeds. Lotus plants cover him with their shade. The willows by the brook surround him. Though the river rages, the behemoth is unafraid. Big animals. Didn't care. He remains confident, even if the Jordan surges up to his mouth. Can anyone capture him while he looks on or pierce his nose with snares? No. You can't stop this animal. Can you pull the Leviathan? Here's another one. Can you pull the Leviathan out with a hook or tie its tongue down with a rope? No. Y'all probably maybe heard big snake creatures, water creatures. Can you pull a cord through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? No. Will he beg you for mercy or speak softly to you? No. Will he make a covenant with you so that you take him and make him a slave forever? No. Can you play with him like a bird or put him on a leash for your girls? No. Will traders bargain for him or divide him among the merchants? Well, they absolutely would, but they're not going to get him. Can you fill his hide with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? You can. Can you lay a hand on him? Will you remember? I love this. Lay a hand on him, you will remember the battle, and you will never repeat it. Any hope of capturing him proves false. Does a person collapse at the very sight of him? Yes, obviously these were humongous creatures that people just fainted in fear. I mean, they knew these things were powerful. You couldn't stop them. No one is ferocious enough to rouse the Leviathan. Who then can stand against me? If you can't even stop the animals I created, you think you're going to stand against me, Job? Mm-mm. Who confronted me that I should repay him? Everything under heaven belongs to me. I cannot be silent about his limbs, his power, and his graceful proportions. Who can strip off his outer covering? Who can penetrate his double layer of armor? Who can open its jaws surrounded by those terrifying teeth? His pride is his row of scales closely sealed together. One scale is so close to another that no air can pass through them. They are joined to one together, so closely connected they cannot be separated. This is interesting. He's snorting with flashes of light while his eyes are like rays of dawn. Flaming torches shoot from his mouth. Fiery sparks fly out. What does that sound like? Dragon. Dragons aren't mythological creatures. They're real. Smoke bellows from his nostrils as from a boiling pot or burning reeds. His breath sets coals ablaze, and flames pour out from his mouth. Strength resides in his neck, and dismay dances before him. The folds of his flesh are joined together, solid as metal and unmovable. His heart as hard as rock, as hard as a lower millstone. When Leviathan rises, the mighty are terrified. They withdraw because of his thrashing. The sword that reaches him will have no effect, nor will the spear, dart, or arrow. He regards iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. No arrow can make him flee. Sling stones become like stubble to him. A club is regarded as stubble, and he laughs at the sound of a javelin. His undersides are jagging potsherds, spreading the mud like a threshing sludge. He makes the depths seethe like a cauldron. He makes the sea like an ointment jar. He leaves the shining wake behind him. One would think the deep had gray hair. He has no equal on earth, a creature devoid of fear. He surveys everything that is haughty. He is king over the proud beast. Listen, folks. These humongous animals. He's like, you're scared to death of them. Do you think you can do anything with me? Absolutely not. And so when we're going through suffering, we need to remember, we need to make sure that we vindicate God. God is just. I don't understand why he's allowing this to happen to me. It could be, we know sometimes because of sin in our life, or it could be that we basically are suffering as a result of somebody else's sin that we're struggling with and having to deal with. Sometimes it's because we haven't been walking with the Lord and He's pulling us back and He's allowing suffering to discipline us. Sometimes we really don't have an answer. But one thing we can say is God is just in allowing it. He is still the King of the universe. He still sustains the universe. He knows the universe. He knows my suffering. And so Job replies to God. He says this: I know that you can do anything, and no plan of yours can be thwarted. You ask, who is this who conceals my counsel with ignorance? That was the question God started off with. And here's what Job says: surely I spoke about things I did not understand, things too wondrous for me to know. You said, God, you said, listen now and I will speak. When I question you, you will inform me. I have heard reports about you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore, I reject my words and am sorry for them. I am dust and I am ashes. Here's our challenge. When you go through suffering, it's easy to vindicate yourself, especially if you don't know of any sin in your life or maybe somebody else's sin that's causing you to go through suffering. You just can't understand why this has happened. You might why did I get cancer? I've been tithing. I've served the Lord. I love the Lord. It's easy to vindicate yourself over and over again, but you need to make sure you vindicate God. God, I'm holding you blameless here. You let this happen for a reason. I don't understand it. You know why I'm going through it. You know what, but I'm going to hold on to you. I'm going to accept blessing and adversity from you. I'm going to be totally surrendered to you. Again, I tell people, it's just somebody told me this years ago. I had a lady who, we had somebody pass away in the church. She goes, Jim, she says, I know it makes sense in my mind, but my heart hasn't caught up yet. And one thing I try to encourage people is, look, you don't always know God's plan, but you can trust His heart. And so even when you go through those times of suffering and your heart has not caught up yet to why, or you still don't know why, and there's all those questions, trust His plan. Trust His heart. And again, a reminder for you and I, believers, we are but dust. Right? From dust we came, to dust will return. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so I want to challenge you to vindicate